no surprises rule is an amendment that a board member will not surprise other members of the board or the superintendent. It equally means that the superintendent will not surprise members of the board. Now, the no surprises rule is based on a foundation of high-level trust and high-level commitment to communication. This is best practice. There's no law, there's research, but here's what we do know. You do know that in settings where we're committed to how we work, how will we work.
Thanks to Audrey and on the logistical work today, their tech crew, as well as.
In that case, I think you made a motion and yes.
I motion to add an action item to our set up for
Okay, there's a motion on the table to add an action item. Is there a second?
purposes of discussion of the action item.
Okay, all of those in favor of hearing about the action item, please say aye. Can I see the hands? Okay, those opposed? Okay, so 5-2 vote on that, so please go ahead with your action item.
I motion that we pass explaining motion by this board. Our board of county trustee leader has made comments in the taken that expose the entire board or the school district to legal or political liability and due to this behavior, the board should consider adopting an explaining motion. Because an individual school board member is an elected official, it's possible that trustee Weaver will have what is known as a parent authority in the community. This apparent authority could make or liable for the acts of this behavior if it does not discipline those acts. Because the school board is general powers authority under the revised code, a board does not need specific formal authority to display the actions of a parent member. In such circumstances, our board should accept from the conduct of this individual member by passing the explaining motion. By publicly explaining the acts of trustee Weaver, the board will be in a strong position to limit its exposure for wrongful acts of the individual member. And I have copies of the explaining motion, which I can pass out to.
So at this point, you are making a motion. I think you need to read it and have a second.
Okay. I ask that Secretary Gupta, please read this motion. I should. I'll read it. I'll read it.
Disclaiming motion by the Rochester Community Schools Board of Education. Whereas the Rochester Community Schools Board of Education functions as a unit, not a collection of individual agendas, and when the board speaks, it is with one purpose. Whereas the board's main objective is to work in conjunction with Superintendent Dr. Sheehan to educate district students and as such, this requires trust, understanding, collaboration, and cooperation between the school board and the administration, charged with the daily operational tasks of our school district. Whereas the Rochester Community Schools Board of Education also adheres to a code of cooperation for conduct among board members, cited in our board bylaw 109 pages 8 through 9. Whereas, while not statutory laws, our code of cooperation are norms that our board has adopted and individually agreed to for setting the tone and expectation for behavior between individual board members as well as board conduct with district administrators. Whereas, trustee Litkouhi verifies that the norms and trust amongst his board colleagues by sharing confidential information from the board's employees Dr. Robert Shaner, who is news media and office of communications. Whereas, Trustee Weaver also omitted the accompanying documentation that lays out the communications our district administration had with him before time, which informed the rationale of the letter. Whereas, at no time did the majority of the Rochester Community Schools Board of Education to attend by this communication sent from Superintendent Dr. Shaner. Now, therefore, the result of all of that. Number one, the comments of a single member of this board do not represent the position or opinion of the school board as an entity or provides the school code. And number two, the community and its members be placed on notice that unless specifically authorized by motion of this board, an individual member of the school board has no greater authority than that of an individual community member, and that such individual comments should not be construed as representing the position or opinion of the school board. And number three, the school board disavows the aforementioned comments as representing the decision or opinion of the school board, signed the Rochester Community Schools Board of Education.
Okay, prior to any discussion here, please.
Well, I mean, we had a pretty robust discussion today about the importance of trust. And as an individual trustee on this wonderful, I was shocked and quite frankly dismayed by the behavior of Trustee Weaver by contacting media to share correspondence that was very confidence by my colleagues. And quite frankly, I think that exposes our board to potential liability. I think that the fact that this individual does not sign the code of cooperation for conduct today shows that he could potentially continue this behavior. And I find it egregious. And I think that as a board, we need to speak collectively to refuse his actions.
Either,
I make a motion.
you would be the second. All right, no more discussion. All those in favor of tabling, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, the motion is not.
I'm going to postpone the decision, and can I explain the reason why?
You can make the motion at this point, and then we will have a chance to discuss. I need a second. Okay, and then your last one, wish to, I apologize, I'm going to get here. So we first.
Is not only redundant and unnecessary, but evasive and cowardly. It goes without saying that each individual board member is responsible for his or her own actions. We do not have the power to represent the board as individuals. We learn that. The board president is the official spokesperson. None of us as individuals are the spokesperson for the board. And we received a letter. We know what the letter said. The superintendent was threatening to sue the board on account of the actions of an individual. He doesn't have the power to do that. He doesn't have the power to blame the board for actions of individuals, even though he just tried to. This is in continuation of his gathering this guy's ability. So what we need to focus on is addressing that threat. And also remember this, if we vote to carry something like this out and isolate one of our trustees in this way, I think that would expose us to some liability. And the reason is there are other legal firms out there who are interested in the workings of public bodies, and they could get involved. That trustee could come back and sue us for failing to represent him in this other lawsuit. There's a lot of legal questions to keep in mind, and I would like to postpone this decision until we can consult with attorneys. We can hear, all the different sides of this argument and where our actually stands. I don't think we're in a position to vote on a matter like this today until we have more information. Maybe we do choose to go through with it, but I think that we should postpone it until we can consult with legal counsel and make sure that we're doing the right thing.
Does anyone else be interested?
I will refer back to my comment that we are not in a position, this is not available for our full public to see. This should be done at a regular meeting, where it's streamed, where it's live streamed, that this is available for our whole community to see this discussion. Do this way is an absolute slap in the face to our community and the cause for transparency. In fact, we have 2 board members sitting at this table that ran on that. This again is an absolute slap in the face to do this way. Everyone needs to look at themselves and really have that ethical question right now. This is the right way to handle this motion. If you want to do it, I'm glad to have this conversation before we the public. I'm glad to make every piece of this conversation very transparent to the community. But to do this in this manner is completely unethical. And again, it's not in the spirit of the rules in which we just watched. We went through a training that's basically outlined that almost everything in this is a false allegation. And again, I'm going to have that conversation, but it needs to be done at a regular meeting in front of our community, where the entire community can see it at a much longer portion than what's in this room right now. So again, I ask everyone to have that hard-looking side of themselves, that ethical question we just talked about, and decide if this is the right way to do this. I would gladly have this conversation and take this motion on, but it needs to be done in a special meeting, at a regular staff meeting. Which for the record, I requested. I requested in that documentation both to people and Trustee Bueltel. That request was made by me, and have that done that should have been processed before that stuff ever became public.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak about this rule?
I just feel that there was comment that this is such a serious matter that it does need to be considered today. And I think that the spirit of the motion, the resolution in general was, if I understand it right, I took notes, was to distance ourselves as a board from conduct and comments of one individual, and to put us in a stronger position to limit our exposure from the comments and the actions of that individual. I don't want to wait for another meeting.
Okay, are there any other comments before we vote? Andrew, there's still someone else who needs to speak first. Jessica?
So on the motion on the floor
Is to postpone.
postponing, and so on that point, I also look at that I think it's timely to give a full picture, a more thorough at least picture, with all the information to our community in the spirit of transparency, so that they can have more information at their disposal to come to their own conclusions about it. So waiting prolongs that. And so for that reason, in addition to some other mentions, moving forward today.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, so the motion on the table is to postpone. All those in favor of postponing, please say aye.
Public
I'm
comment?
sorry, aye. No, sorry. I apologize. Public comment?
Sure. So I've just sat here, my name's John Marco, I live 245 Virginal Drive. Both my kids graduated from the school, and I actually moved to the school district 20 years ago because of Rochester Community Schools. I've just sat here for 7 hours, and that'll never get back of my life on a Saturday. And that's so beautiful Saturday for Michigan in January. To sit here and hear you talk about not dropping bombs on each other and having all come from a reporter. Madam, when you are responsible for speaking for the board, I want you to remember that you did this in the dark. Mr. Weaver has told you he will stand up in front of the public at a public meeting on the record, on the video record, the one that stays forever and ever, amen, unless it's in Silver Lake, Rochester Community School District. Something we addressed a few months back. And he will tell you, he will stand up and he will explain himself. All that to be said, if you do this today, you are exactly what the people have been saying. Wait till the room is empty and then pull this kind of garbage. I expect more of you. All of them. If you feel that strongly about it, then stand up and do it in public. And I'm not talking about in front of 8 people. I'm talking about in front of the masses. Thank you.
part, the turning around. I think that was really poor form that you were facing away from the gentleman that was just speaking a moment ago. I want to first of all thank Michelle for taking on the job of president. I've always respected your abilities to ask hard questions and inquire and sound like you're really involved in board business. So congratulations to you on that. I'm happy for you for that. Happy for us for that. I mean, seriously, what Jen just said, this is insane. She just got done talking about surprises, how poor form that is. She just got done talking about respecting your fellow board members. This is like you didn't even hear what was just taught to you, and we know, because you've been on the board bar for so many years, that you've heard this speech before. You've heard her presentation before. It's not the first time you've been made aware of procedure. So I'm here today because I wanted to hear what was going on, and I wanted to be reassured that we are being taught or fed how things work appropriately. When you just were, I really didn't have too much problem with everything she just said. There's lots of questions, but not like problems with it. And then literally when she gets done, I'm thinking, okay, we're done. Wow, that's kind of nice. I've been here all day too, just like you. And then I hear, well, we're gonna do it, and then now we're starting, wait, it sounds like they're starting a meeting. How is it they can start another meeting? And I'm not also a parliamentary expert, but I sure as heck know this is not kosher behavior. Poor form, very poor form for leadership. If you have an issue that you want to take, wow, you clearly already had somebody write that stuff up. It went on and on and on as Jessica read out this very detailed proclamation that you've made. Mr. Weaver spoke nothing but truths. He produced nothing on Facebook that wasn't already publicly available on Facebook. He did not disclose anything that had not already been disclosed. And as a matter of fact, his photo that he disclosed had faces covered over that the parent at the field trip had posted the photos and hadn't covered up the kids' faces. So let's be clear on a number of levels of this stuff going on. A real serious investigation of this issue needs to go on before anybody on this board starts taking their high and mighty political views over Mr. Weaver, who has been brought out of the board by a full almost 50% of this district. So yeah, you can make your face about counting numbers, okay? I'm here to tell you, we are not a vocal minority. And what you're doing is wrong today.
Deanna Harless.
Hello, Deanna Harless. I'm a resident of the district, parent of one kid in the district. I'd just like to say there was no talk of code of conduct when Barb posted a letter yesterday blasting Andrew. There was no talk of code of conduct when Jessica reported a false threat to her supporters to try to win votes in an election, claimed that we were planning a Dear Board style attack. There was no question of the code of conduct when Kristen testified under oath that she never considered telling a parent the truth when the district was faced with a lawsuit. Her exact words were, no, I never considered it, in a legal deposition. Yet Andrew shares information that he was given, and now all of a sudden we have a code of conduct concern. Frankly, to hear almost any of you talk about a code of conduct when you let Dr. Shaner get away with what he's gotten away with and his staff over there is ridiculous, laughable actually. Thank you.
Has this meeting started? Is this a meeting? Is this a meeting?
This is the meeting. It was called to order when we started the professional development for the roll call.
And just one final thing. I think the optics on this, they obviously look bad. I think this could provide us a really good chance to actually smooth things over with the public. If they can see us postpone the decision, it doesn't mean we make a decision today. We can make whatever decision you want to make in a month or after we consult legal counsel. I think it would be a huge step forward with our community. I think it would be a really great way to start building trust together as a board. I'm excited to work with all of you. And honestly, I know there's tension. I know there's that elephant in the room just made a great point earlier, okay, let's try to start fresh. Let's try to see if we can work together and find some points of agreement. Let's not start right off the bat just fighting each other. We are all beholden to the code of conduct, which is in our bylaws. Whether you sign the small segment of that that was here today or not, honestly, we're all beholden to the bylaws as soon as we were elected board members and took that oath of office. So I would just like to call to start building up a better relationship between all of us. Please try to hear us out and judge what we say based on the merit of what we say instead of on what personal feelings might exist from before. I don't want to let personal feelings get in the way. I want to be able to keep our eyes focused on our true mission, which is the kids, which is student achievement. And hopefully that can help build this relationship together and build trust together. We know we're all, we might disagree sometimes. That's true. That's healthy. We should learn how to agree and disagree as well and move on once a decision is made, knowing that we're all coming at it from these different angles with our eyes on student achievement, with our eyes on making RCS the best that it can be.
Okay, at this
So I just want to once again note that the second meeting that started was the Board of Education Professional Development Workshop. This is a meeting, it is a workshop. So again, I'm going to reiterate one more time that I am 100% committed to fully having this conversation. Which again, we heard from the training we were in from OMA that this is not something that can go behind closed doors. Because it's pending litigation, potential litigation. I communicated that to, again, Vice President Bueltel at the time and Trustee Bueltel what my concerns were upon receiving that letter. I shared with both of you that I would withhold comment. You both acknowledged that I most likely would want to address this because I was the one naming the letter. That was a very open and honest conversation with production. That was me following the bylaws that we have. That was me operating in good faith. I withheld it. I had back and forth communication. We had 2 emails back and forth. So again, there can be some debate on when the final decision was for certain information to start coming public, but to sit here and act that I did not act in good faith and I tried to follow bylaws in which that the spirit of them is just disingenuous. And again, I would ask, where did fine, you're gonna put this forward, provide the evidence. Make it public again. Once again, emphasize what we just watched. Ask yourself, ethically, are you doing the right thing? This again, fine, we're gonna vote on it. It's gonna be public record, it's gonna be recorded, people are gonna see it. We all said, whenever we finally see what happened, are you gonna be able to look yourself in the mirror and say you did the right thing? Because I, again, 100% am willing to have this conversation where we can collect all the documentation, put all the documentation out for the public to see, and let the public also know how we came where we came to. Because perfectly honest, I question who else on this table has that same letter that I have. Who else has it? Does anyone else ask that question? Did we spend money on this? Did we as a board, we know that did we spend money on this? Did we ask anyone? Did Collins and Law help write this? Did we pay them? Do we know that answer? That's why this needs to be postponed. We need to answer questions like that and have that conversation in front of our community.
Amen.
Just a quick question. With the way that this meeting was identified, does that allow us to have any business at this meeting, or does it need to be listed separately?
This meeting, this is a meeting of the board, and the public should know I'm able to respond as a parliamentarian not supporting school boards. This meeting is a continuation of a recessed meeting.
No, it was adjourned.
We adjourned.
Adjourned it.
Opened it with a roll call, and then this was the next item.
All right, so, Scott.
Hey, how you doing? Hey, so, a lot going on here. Thank you for coming in and doing what you did. You got my mind thinking a lot about a lot of different things. I think where we're at with this right now is a situation where, because the water's murky, we want to do things the right way. Whether I agree with some of the actions and the things that we're talking about here, to me is beside the point. We'll talk about that. I think we do that in a public forum. Because listen, the things that we're talking about here, the things that were done or not done, other things that need to be put out there, whatever, bottom line is, social evidence, social proof of what, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do it. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Taking account of the big picture of when we communicate to the public and how that represents our board, heck with this board, how does that represent the teachers when they got to get up and go to work and they got to read about us in the paper? How does that make kids have to go to school and feel a certain type of way? Well, what's going on at school? What's going on over there? If we want, what we say what we want is a certain outcome, process, and discipline, accountability, and creating great goals so this school district can meet and exceed its potential and be the best version of itself, this stuff has to stop. So yeah, we're going to talk about this in public. That's what we're going to do. And we're going to let people decide with common sense whether or not what we're doing in media and all this other stuff is how we should be operating. Because I'm of the sentiment, what this lady just walked us through is how we should be running our business. Because we are not running this, we're running this on emotion. Look at me, here I go, I just fell on the track. We're running this crap on emotion, and this is wrong. Let's get our heads out of our hind end. That means everybody. And let's figure this thing out and stop exercising willful misunderstanding and looking for little slippity slips. Oh, is this a law? I don't give a shit if this is a law. This is the way to do things and the way to do it right. And we're going to execute on it. So let's not act like we're smarter than other people. Let's stop being cute. Let's be transparent. And we're going to talk about this and we're going to do it right. And we're going to level some integrity with everybody here. Otherwise, we're all just going to be fighting forever. And that's not how it's going to go. So, we'll see you guys in public.
All right, three more comments. I just want to comment because I feel very strongly about a couple things that I think have been misrepresented here. So, I think the spirit of this disclaiming motion speaks to a breakdown in trust that we were trying to develop. Because, and yes, I agree with you. So Michelle and I did meet with you. We read the letter to you. We told you that we knew that at some point you would want to respond. So I have correspondence with you on several occasions, including on Christmas Eve. I apologize for not getting back to you then. Up until Tuesday this week. And I recall emailing you and asking you when you were available to talk about this issue on Thursday. And I recall you said you weren't available. And on Tuesday night, because I was committed to working this out, I know you would ask for a closed meeting or a public meeting. You would ask for what we could do. And what I told you was I would check with our general counsel because I wasn't sure. I told you what I thought, but I definitely didn't want to be the authority on that because I thought we needed a legal opinion on whether or not we could meet in public about this letter. On the 10th, on January 10th, which was Tuesday, I asked you for a meeting to talk about this on Thursday because, to be honest, I was tired of going back and forth on email. And on Tuesday night, it was struck up in the media. So, to me, there is a lot of urgency in doing this because I personally don't trust what's going to happen next. And I'm a little bit terrified of that. I would say that, I would like to speak to the content of the letter in general. Ideally, we can get to a point where this letter is made public. It's not my letter to be able to make public at this time because the writer doesn't have a right for this to be private, in my opinion. So I would say that the letter was not a threat, and the letter was, there was never a threat made to the board in this letter, and that's how I would characterize it. I would say that this is about sharing information that was shared with you where there was an agreement. Was it binding? No, but there was an agreement and there was a trust that you would not share it publicly. So that is why I think that it's very urgent that we take this action now because frankly, I don't trust that anything that is said
or done won't show up on your Facebook page at this point.
All right, any more questions? At this point, we are voting on whether to postpone the discussion and vote of the motion. So all of those in favor of postponing, please raise your hands. We have 3 to 4. I'm assuming all those opposed to postponing, 4. 3 to 4. We will proceed with the motion that was originally mentioned, which is the disclaiming motion. That was originally moved by Barb and seconded by Kristen. Is there discussion on that motion? Kristen?
I'd just like to amend the motion to make it clear. So this would be the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th, where trustee and Weaver violated our board norms and policies by sharing confidential information from a board trustee related to the board trustee. I like to say from a board trustee. This wasn't shared. It was shared from a board trustee related to a board trustee. Whereas trustee Andrew Weaver violated our board norms and trust amongst his board colleagues by sharing confidential information from a board trustee related to the board employee. Use the motion.
All right, I just want to reiterate that, I'm afraid of the optics of how this looks. Remember, as a board, we're not responsible for the actions of trustee Weaver. As much as we might disagree with him at times, as much as it might, frustrate us at times, and I'll be honest with you, he frustrates me sometimes, and he knows that. But I know that I am not responsible for anything that he does, and I'm just afraid that if we do this, if we're reactionary because of somebody like him, I'm worried about the legal liability that might open up for any one of us, if we were to get a threatening letter. I suppose I'm fearful about that. I wish I could have more trust. The reason I don't is because there's been this pattern, but I'm not afraid of being responsible for the actions of any one of you, because I know that any of your actions aren't going to impact the actions of the board. We're only responsible. The board is only responsible for the board's actions as a group. So I am more concerned about the idea that we could get another lawsuit against our district if something happens and there's a lawsuit against a trustee, and he might need representation, and he might bring a lawsuit against our district. I think that's a real possibility, because there are law firms out there who are willing to help people in those kinds of situations where they've been hung out to dry. So, Jessica?
I was going to say that sounds a little bad. That's not my main point that I want to make here. I think when people do things that are not trustworthy, then that engenders a reaction that says, I need to establish a boundary. And I see this as this board trying to establish a boundary that protects us moving forward. We cannot say with any broad stroke that the actions of this one board member in this instance will not be a liability for our institution just because he did it unilaterally. We cannot say that, we don't know that.
We're supposed to be making amendments.
I am.
Or you're in the content.
Okay, he did that too, so get me
And I do apologize, because Kristen did make the amendment and wasn't seconded. Barb seconded. I do apologize. Thank you for that coming forward. So the motion on the floor right right now is the amendment to the motion, which is adding the line in, on the last paragraph of that page, confidential information from a board trustee, related to the board's employee. So, do we have a vote on that to amend the motion? All of those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, did you vote? Okay, 5-1-1 for the amendment. We are now back to the amended motion. And do we have any other comments on it? I'm sorry. We are now voting on the amended motion, which is basically this with the few lines changed in. Yes.
My only comment is to just clarify, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to sound threatening or anything, I wasn't trying to sound like that at all. I'm just trying to think about all of the different possibilities that we could possibly be facing just to do due diligence.
And did you have
So, as stated in the actual public meeting, I explained why I did not sign the code of conduct, which is cited in this. Okay, we're recognizing the code of conduct, which is where I communicated to both Vice President Bull and Michelle Bueltel, was my concern with the subjectivity of why I signed it. And again, we were in good faith with you, because we had a meeting prior to that, you asked me, and after the review, what would it take me to sign it? I provided you guys with specific information, why I was concerned about it, and the fact that this could be weaponized. And that's exactly what's happening with it. Because I share an opinion that is different than the majority of this board, and again, you don't like something that I'm doing, but again, you just have to train you. There's nothing I have done that has violated any laws, any actual procedures, and we can find out what is failing us, and is what I ran on, is we have a lack of processes, we have a lack of policies, and no one really knows what their role is. And so again, because I shared something you don't like, we're going to take action. Again, there are many examples we can sit and look at and say, I didn't like something that somebody did. But not liking what someone did does not mean you need to violate actual process. So you're trying to hold me accountable to a process that does not exist. So again, you're 100% right. This is what's going to get our district in trouble. So everyone's going to vote. This is going to be a public record, and we're going to move forward. But if you think this is the step moving forward, we sat on the table. Again, I made fun of Scott. We sat here and had a good conversation. He doesn't show up a lot of meetings. I made fun of him. I said to you guys, let's just be honest with what we're doing and move forward. This is not it, because to be perfectly honest, you just heard that the confidentiality that's mentioned in this document is an opinion of the board member. That doesn't mean it's actually confidential. I don't get to deem something confidential. That letter is subject to FOIA, which means it is not confidential. Someone FOIAs it tomorrow, it's out. So it is not confidential. This is not a legally binding contract. This is not a legal thing. This is going to get torn up by an actual lawyer. So again, if we did have a lawyer already that's saying, if we paid our district lawyer to help say, that's even worse. If we can't answer that question here to vote for this, is again a failure on anyone that votes yes on this. You're actually saying you're voting for a document that is full of actually things that cannot be proven, and no one actually brought proof here. You are saying I don't like the opinion of someone, and I'm going to try to hold them to a standard that nobody else has been held to. That's called discrimination.
I would just like to directly respond to that by saying this is not because I am not supporting this because it's not because I don't agree with you. It's separate than that, and I think it's more than that. This is because in trying to collaborate and cooperate, one of the first things we did, or one of the first things that happened in that relationship was indicating to me that you were going to do one thing and then doing something different. And in fact, that in doing that something different, you really misconstrued, in my opinion, and didn't provide the full information. It was a very misconstrued story that you delivered related to this document. And I don't see how that benefits kids at the end of the day. I don't see how that benefits kids. And that's my compelling lie. I think that should be our team's compelling lie. I'm concerned that week one, this action actually had a detrimental effect on kids in the long run. And that is why I feel very strongly that currently, we need to take this action that, very clearly indicates that, and that the community and its members are placed on notice, but unless it's specifically authorized by the school board, an individual member of the school board has no greater authority than that of an individual community member. And I just want to make that very clear on the record.
Can I ask a super question?
You may make a statement.
No, can I ask you a question? Robert's rules, So my question is going to be the harmless students, and what harmless caused by students? There was a statement of harmless cause, and that took students, and asking what that was.
That's it. Personally, I can't measure that at the time. I'm talking about at my 50,000 foot view, your actions this week harm students. And that's all I can say about that.
That's why I didn't talk about
You just sat through 7 hours of training to say policies, process, handability. And yes, it's 100% subjective that you don't like what I said. I did not violate any bylaws. And so again, is that I followed the process. I was talking to you. I was exchanging ideas. I was expressing my concerns. There can be a difference in debate at the end of the day of how much time was supposed to be allowed. And so going from December 21st-ish, 21st, 22nd, to January 8th, and went on to,
Which I will say was during the whole break.
that's fine, days are days. Days are days. I'm okay with that, days are days. And when you communicated in a verbal conversation, that really, I planned to go public with it that day when I got it. So that was a sign of good faith. So to say that I was not operating in good faith, that I was not giving information, I specifically requested, I sent an email to both of you with detailed specific information, asking for specific questions, expressing my concern for the board being sued, because that is exactly what the letter says. So to state that it was not a threat, the last line of it is to seek legal recourse. If you aren't able to do what's listed above, seek legal recourse is what the letter states. That is saying there is a potential that legal action could be taken. So again, specifically lay that out, express my concerns, that it need to be done in open meetings, cited the law why it need to be done in open meetings. There was communication that came back saying it was looking to go to a closed door meeting, which I replied back to and said, I don't think we can do that. Who are we asking? And yes, when it became clear we were asking Collins and Blaha is when I made that decision. Because Collins and Blaha did exactly what I thought they would do and said closed door, which we just learned in training, we cannot do it in closed door.
At this point, I apologize for interrupting.
We cannot do this meeting cannot be a closed door to talk about the concerns that I raised. So in fact, what we're doing is saying because I raised concerns that were not addressed, were not taken seriously, and then I decided that it needed to be escalated to make sure that we got some attention on it, so we did address the policy, so we start working on the issues that affect our district. I'm getting one of these. So because of the fact that I actually did what mostly was described in today's training, I'm actually being held accountable to a subjective policy, which again, you guys asked me for feedback, and I told you was subjective. So literally, I let you know exactly what was coming, and here it is. I had all the receipts are there. So again, at this point, if we're not going to say we're going to have this conversation in public, it's going public one way or another. I can promise you that.
Jessica.
So just a couple points. I'd like to correct the distortion that continues to be repeated that this is somehow about about one minor disagreement. That is not it at all. This is about trust, it's about liability to the district, and misrepresentation. To promote a letter throughout all these outlets about our district without the supporting documentation that came to you along with that letter that informs the rationale of the letter is misleading and irresponsible. So this is not subjectively untrustworthy. This is untrustworthy in my view. And no, you did not do what was prescribed as best practice and follow all the rules. You went rogue. You could have done a lot of other things. You could have had further conversation, for instance, with your board colleagues. You never talked to me about it, and I never got a call from you to say, hey, Jessica, like, have you read this? Like, what do you think? Do we need to build a coalition? Do we need to talk to our board leadership together and say, hey, you know, this doesn't seem right. We got to make a change. We got to address this in a different way, or we have to make this public in this other way. No, there was none of that. Bypassed that whole process altogether and went to the media and the public with it. So, no, I don't, you know, there's lots of trust loss coming in, lots of trust loss reinforced in this experience, hoping that we can get on track at some point in the future. But at this point in time, I do feel like a boundary needs to be established.
Madam President.
Carol Beth, I believe I used to have a chart here, but I believe Kristen has not spoken to me as you have.
Please.
I just wanted to respond directly and say that if in 2 years, Trustee Weaver, if in 2 years there is a new board and I do something that from a 50,000 foot level has a detrimental impact on kids, I hope someone holds me accountable. That's all I have to say.
I just want to look at this from a practical level. I want everyone to just ask themselves the question. If we pass this motion, is that going to stop Trustee Weaver from posting on his blog? Practically speaking, I don't think that's true. He still has his individual rights to do what he'd like to do. I think the best way to try to influence Trustee Weaver's behavior is to try to show good faith towards him, to try to work with him, to try to, you know, influence him in that manner. I think that he's not afraid of things like this. I think that's just something we've come to learn. So even if you're not happy with the way that he went about his decision, even if you completely disagree with him, is this the most effective way to stop him in the future? Or might it be more effective if we can try to build that team mentality of listening to each other in good faith? And I was also just wondering if everyone has seen the letter that was written regarding his behavior. All of us board members have seen the letter and seen the wording of it and everything. Okay, that's good too.
So, I mean, I would say that I am disappointed that I thought we had an agreement on moving forward and waiting until we had heard back from a lawyer on what the options were. The fact that this letter was not addressed to you, I understand that it was about you and it was shared with you, but it was not addressed to you, and you then proceeded to make that public without notifying anyone on the board. And while I understand it may have seemed like a long time to you, we were also dealing with Christmas and New Year's and Hanukkah and all sorts of breaks and people being off from the school and just on vacations. So things did not move as fast as they may have usually moved. So I would hope, obviously this is making a statement. We are trying to hopefully allow you to see that we have norms. Whether you take the code of cooperation, the way it's written in our boundaries, but just general norms that require the no surprise piece, whether that's at the table or in the public, that we consider those things. This is not my ideal, and I will say that. This is not what I want to do. I had hopes that we would all be able to build some trust and work together. But I understand that, it appears that the majority of the board is in support of these items. And as I said, I just really felt that releasing that information was not what a board member should do.
What were the question? What legally does this change?
It's much like censure, in that there is really nothing that changes from the standpoint. It's boundaries, it's identifying that the actions were not acceptable.
Oh, it has no, sorry, Madam President, so this doesn't actually have legal repercussions to it at all?
What we are, the only person who can remove someone from office is the governor or a recall.
I feel better actually.
This is it's boundaries.
It's redundant.
It's redundant, I'm sorry. Got it.
So at this point, are we able to vote on the motion, the amended motion that is before us, that was moved by Barb, seconded by Kristen?
Now without public comment.
And thank you for the reminder, Mr. Marco.
Not a problem.
And I appreciate, I think you did put a card.
I scribbled one on, I sure
Yes.
did.
So if you would like to speak at this time, please.
Sure. So, if I could see your faces, please. I really appreciate it. I know it's sunny here, but it is one of those pet peeves that I have. And when I told you all, I sat in your seats before as a zoning board of appeals member, and I always made sure the person standing at the podium, I was looking at them. I wasn't doing this. I wasn't playing on my phone. I was looking at them. So I'm going to use my inside voice now, because usually earlier I used my outside voice, and I apologize a little bit for that. But I too get a little emotional sometimes. I want to be clear. What I heard was that Dr. Shaner sent a letter to the president, I guess pro tem at the time, I'm not sure quite the term, the person who was assigned to be the president at the last board meeting in December. And somehow, those were the only two people who had it. And then somehow, President Bueltel got pulled in to it. And then a phone call was made to Mr. Weaver. And if I had that wrong, then it's because a lot of stuff was going back and forth. But that's what I heard. So here's my question to all of you as you get ready to vote on this. And you talk about transparency, and you talk about how you were all offended. How did that lady right there get called into this? Who violated the first piece of trust? The person who sits here and says to us, you violated our trust. The petite little lady who stood here, who stands here and says, he violated my trust. Well, who violated the trust? Because as near as I can tell, the chain of command or the chain of custody was Shaner to you, and it should have gone to him, and it didn't. It went over there, and then it went to him. If I understood that correctly, then you vote the way you want. But if not, then don't stand here and give me this pile of horse manure that you guys are all about trust and you're all offended and you're all can't believe what happened. Because quite frankly, you violated the trust when A, that man didn't have the pilotas to stand up. I'm not in the public, I'm not being tape recorded as best I know. They'd call Mr. Weaver and say, hey, we got to have a discussion. That's one. Two, the fact that this lady called that lady before they called him broke trust as well. So when you're all sitting here saying to yourselves, oh, I'm offended and I'm hurt and I'm this and I'm that and I'm the other thing. Take 5 seconds before you vote, get your mirror out, turn your phone on, do whatever you want, and look yourself in the face. And ask yourself this question. Did you all who were involved in this do it right? Yep, well, you're standing there nodding your head that you did, then congratulations. Vote the way you want. Because you know what? I go back to it. Sunshine is the best disinfectant, and you haven't got the guts to stand here and put this in the public purview.
Taking, by the way.